We heard a bit about snow and the importance of cold weather. Next, I want to introduce Jason Box with the Geological Survey of Denmark and Greenland. Jason has spent a lot of time in Greenland studying the ice of Greenland and what it can tell us about where the planet has been and where it may be headed. So without further ado, Jason.
Thanks a lot. You know, it's really great to be here. I want to thank Sally, the Turner Foundation, and the Turner family for making me aware of this event and involving me. And it's exciting because I'm hearing a lot about technically feasible, economically viable solutions to the climate crisis that we face. So, you know, I've come a long way to make this meeting. And I did so to first talk about what ice is telling us. Ice is telling a very clear story. It's a very useful indicator of change. And I also want to frame that with solutions. So this is kind of an emotional roller coaster. I want to start with some background about me. I was very lucky to go to the University of Colorado to work with top climatologists from around the world. And that was a great springboard, given my love of snow and skiing, to apply that into a career in what we call the cryosphere. For 11 years, I installed and maintained a network of on-ice sheet climate stations that, among other things, were useful for checking NASA's satellite measurements in a ground truth system, also checking climate models, and along the way, in that decade plus, we learned so much about surface processes and the connection of the atmosphere with changing Greenland ice. That got me recruited to Denmark to help lead a group that runs a complementary network focused lower on the ice sheet to where most melting occurs. And so we now have 40 stations on ice that are running for almost 2 decades now. So I want to start with the bad news about our climate. This is our challenge, that we bear witness to abrupt climate change. This is driven by an abrupt increase in our otherwise natural greenhouse effect. This is an enhancement of the greenhouse effect, more than 40% more carbon dioxide. And this, of course, is not really news to you, but it's abrupt. On geologic timescales, this is really without precedent in at least the last 2 million years. This is a reconstruction of Arctic temperatures in summer that show a decline, a gradual, slow decline, a cooling in the Arctic until the period of industrialization, 1750 or later, where we get an abrupt increase in temperatures in the Arctic. This pattern has been called the hockey stick. I think this is also not really news to most of you. This abrupt climate change that brings us into what's being called the Anthropocene. Now, when I add on to this graph what we expect for the next century, we're looking at, there's 2 scenarios plotted there. These are summer Arctic temperatures. We're looking at, by the end of the century, about a 3 Celsius warming in summer. And that's in the Kyoto Protocol scenario. The business as usual scenario is shown above that. That's about twice as much warming, 6 Celsius in summertime in the Arctic. This obviously is a fundamental shift in this Arctic climate system that we can see coming. And if you look at where we are today, it's like this rocket ride has just gotten off the launch pad. When we look at observations of temperatures, we see that most warming is in the Arctic. And that's because as the Arctic warms, a reflective snow cover and sea ice cover goes away, exposing a much darker surface to the 24-hour sunlight in summertime. So if you average those temperature changes across latitude, on the right side you see the Arctic is 2 to 3 times warmer than, say, the United States lower 48, which is represented by that blue bar. So the change we see here is much greater in the Arctic. That's changing that landscape. It's very visible. Visiting this place over decades, we see profound changes in that landscape. But even though the Arctic is distant, Arctic warming at twice the rate of the lower latitudes is slowing down the jet stream. It's slowing down weather patterns and leading to stagnation in the atmosphere. The heat wave and drought in California, the cold in the eastern US the last 2 winters is a signature of Arctic climate warming. The Colorado fires in 2012, this was the warmest summer on record, and this was characterized by a heat dome that sat over Colorado and the central US. This is a signature of climate change, a signature of Arctic warming and its effect on the jet stream. Now, what's emerged is a phrase that I first learned from Julianne Struve, who will be on stage next, a phrase that characterizes what we're discovering about the change in the Arctic. It's proceeding faster than forecast. And I'll take you through 8 reasons, 8 factors that are sending that message to us. So here's Greenland. As it's projected here, you can see there's a dome of ice sitting on land that's keeping it out of the sea. That's an equivalent sea level of about 20 feet, more than 20 feet of equivalent sea level resting on land in Greenland in this dome of ice. And so the first of 8 physical processes that I'll present that are leading to this faster than forecast pattern start with the meltwater, which on the surface of the ice sheet has increased about 50% in the last 40 years. This water has several degrees warmer temperature than the ice internally, and so this is warming the ice internally as it drains inward, and warmer ice is softer and flows faster. This ice softening factor is not yet in the climate models. The water then drains down to the bed where it lubricates flow. Water is an incompressible fluid. The ice glides on this thin film of water. This leads to a 100% speed up in the areas of the ice sheet that have a thawed bed. And this process is not yet in the climate model projections of ice sheet reaction to climate change. The area of the thawed bed is expanding inland on the ice sheet. This is accelerating a larger fraction of the ice sheet area. This effect is not yet in climate models. The water then drains out the front of the ice sheet, in many places into the sea. And you can see how the water rushing out at the front of the glacier pushes the sea ice away. And it even promotes the retreat of the front of the glacier there. You can see that in this image. That's because it's a very vigorous circulation that's driving a forced convection that actually forces a heat exchange between a warm layer of water at depth with the ice column there. And so that undercuts the glacier fronts, promoting icebergs breaking off. When icebergs break off, that's a loss of flow resistance and acceleration. That's a direct connection between meltwater and ice dynamical flow. That effect is not yet in the climate model projections for Greenland. Meltwater collects in crevasses on the surface and ponds. The water is heavier than ice. It has the capacity to force open cracks. What we call this hydrofracture. This effect is not yet in the climate model projections for Greenland ice reaction to abrupt climate change. Water fills rifts, disaggregates bonds, leads to large icebergs calving. Like this one is almost the size of Manhattan Island. And this occurred on the warmest weather period in about 860 years. We have large lakes forming higher up on the inland ice sheet, larger. They absorb about 3 times more sunlight. The increasing melt lake coverage is not yet in climate model projections of ice sheet response to climate warming. In the Arctic, we also have increasing wildfire on the tundra. This is lightning triggered, but there's an expanded fire season with a reduced snow cover season. And I wanted to touch on this because increasing wildfire is delivering more light-absorbing soot to not just Greenland, but snow cover and Arctic sea ice. I started the Dark Snow project, and we've crowdfunded now 3 expeditions to Greenland to measure this, and also to try to get a handle, put numbers on, can we sense the increasing pollution from increasing shipping in the Arctic, or otherwise increasing industrial activity. That effect from increasing light-absorbing impurities from wildfire or industrial activity is not in the climate models yet, the mainstream climate models. So in a summer when you have little snow, the ice sheet surface can get very dark. This surface is absorbing 4 or 5 times more sunlight than a clean bare ice surface. And some of this is black carbon soot, but the Dark Snow project helped uncover that you see that color. We found that actually there's an increasing colonization of ice algae. They have a dark pigment to regulate sunlight in photosynthesis. This is darkening the surface of Greenland, making it melt faster. This biological factor is not in the climate models yet. So because our models are confounded by complexity that we just haven't had time to encode, because we just go to Greenland and we discover these things, there's just not yet time to get them in, so we have to rely on some simpler kind of estimates. And here's one where if we consider the last time that atmospheric CO2 was at 400 parts per million like it is today, the equilibrium condition for global land ice and global sea level is about 20 meters higher. So the last time atmospheric CO2 was this high, global sea level should have been 20 meters higher. That's almost 70 feet higher. It's obviously going to take some time for sea level rise to equilibrate with today's carbon dioxide excess in the atmosphere. And so we can look at observations, and I'll talk more about what we should expect from sea level rise. I published this reconstruction of the Greenland ice sheet mass balance, and it hits us that this is a threshold system. The ice sheet can be stable, and it always tries to equilibrate to whatever the climate is. But because of abrupt warming, you can see on the right side of that graph, the ice sheet sea level contribution is growing rapidly because it's out of balance, and without a significant cooling, we should not expect Greenland to return to balance. So here's a 2,000-year kind of perspective on sea level with, if you can see the curve on the right going upward to abrupt sea level rise, we don't have a really good handle on what sea level rise should be. But if we look at the last 15 years, where we see the ice sheet coming up in earnest, we resolve about a 10-year doubling time on sea level contribution. This is from global land ice now. And if this follows an exponential, and I think it does, because we may continue adding carbon dioxide to the atmosphere and keep forcing this, wildfire may continue increasing. If there's any tendency, it's probably going to be to shorter doubling times, which puts us at the, say, 11, 10, or 9-year doubling time scale. And you can see how sensitive that is. We're talking between 3, 5, and 11 meters of sea level rise by the end of this century, based on this likely exponential. So the land ice is telling us a big story. It's obviously threatening our coastlines. There's other effects with changing weather patterns. I want to end, because I've heard in this conference also lots of opportunities, and I'm happy to report that I'm also part of a solutions agenda. And I want to ask, do you think a more knowledgeable humanity could be better face the world's complexities if we were more knowledgeable? Yes, thank you. Education, education, education. This theme has come up over and over again. Education for the young and for the not any more so young. This will help us all deal with the complexities that we face going forward. We see that education is the key to many of the solutions that we know about. Do you think if we were better connected to other compassionate and resourceful people that we could better deal with the problems that we face? Yes. Well, I'm here to announce that we now have a Danish-designed global venture to improve the intellectual state of humanity. It's called the meritocracy because it'll take diligence to solve issues, but there's a huge reward for that. We are here to make people more knowledgeable, better connected, and more resourceful. It's a propulsion system. It has a new financial vertical to support all ventures that are geared towards saving the world. We present a new media education product globally, commercial-free, for free. We operationalize interconnection and reconnection with nature. So I'm really just a messenger of this organization. I represent a global network of professors that have gotten behind this venture. And we solicit other thinkers to get involved with us because we have to be smarter as we go forward. I'm also here to connect with investors to help us launch. We're in a pre-launch phase. We're asking for your support. And on success, there is return on this investment. We are blueprinted and ready to scale. And on success, the trustees of this business are all the children on earth. That's who we give the equity in this business to. So if you're in a position to take part in this venture as an investor or know someone compassionate, resourceful, and courageous enough, please get me your card and I'll follow up. Thanks.